Joanne Russell, the Dean of Academic Affairs.
What was your first contact with MCC?
Actually, my first contact, my husband applied and was offered a position here in 1992. And in 1995, I applied to teach as an adjunct in biology. So I began teaching part-time in 1995. I had young children still at home and only wanted to teach part-time.
Okay. So you taught as an adjunct for a couple of years?
From 95 to 98, and I taught different courses in biology. And then for a year, I took a full-time position at another school. And then there were two positions that opened up in the summer of '99 that I was interested in. One was a full-time instructor in biology, and one was a full-time instructor in chemistry. And my background is biochemistry, so I interviewed for both of them and wanted either one, and was offered the full-time position in biology.
Do you remember any of the members of the search committee, or what the process was like?
Yes. Well, Phil Jones was a member of the search committee, and he was someone I had come to know because of the doing the adjunct teaching. And I'm trying to remember who else was on the committee. Actually, Maggie Moriarty, who smiled. Tom Zauner was on one of the committees as the chemist. And that's all I can remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were full-time faculty for a number of years,
yeah.
And then did you become department chair?
A year into my position, I became a co-chair. And what I equate that to, I was a co-chair with Dr. Wesley Klein, who also started at the same time I did. In fact, we had to share an office our first year on the older campus, and we couldn't back up without telling the other one to move because our chairs hit each other in the back. We knew that we were going to move up to the new campus, so it was doable for a year. But we both co-chaired the department, but we really have to say that Phil Jones told us what to do every step of the way so that we looked good, but we weren't really in charge. We looked like we were in charge, but he really mentored us.
He mentored and not micromanaged?
Mentored. He was wonderful.
So you were co-chair?
We were co-chair for until I became division director in liberal arts. So I was co-chair from 2001 to 2006.
Okay. Now, was that it seems like it's a double transition. One moving from faculty department co-chair to division director, and then secondly moving from the sciences to the liberal arts.
Right.
What was the transition like?
It was very interesting because it wasn't something that I had actually anticipated even doing at that point in my career. I under Eleanor Weslow, who was my division director at the time, with her recommendation, I had begun to go to leadership training at Wellesley College in Massachusetts. So that whole year from 2005 2006, I was taking leadership courses. And when the division director in liberal arts was vacated, that position was vacated, I didn't even think of applying, but had a phone call from President Dobby, and it happened to be a night that I was entertaining all of the division directors, or all of the divisions in both Center for Business and Technology and Math, Science, and Health careers. So I had my coat on, I was running out to get platters that I had ordered, and I had a phone call from the president, and he asked me to consider the interim division director of liberal arts. And I said, oh, I haven't even thought about it. I need to think about it. And, of course, my mind was nowhere there right then. I was thinking of food and guests. And so I told him I'd get back to him on Monday, and so over the weekend I thought about it, and I think because it was interim, it felt like, well, I could try it and see if I liked it. And I had already come to enjoy working with faculty a lot as a department chair. We had 40 adjunct faculty, so for that piece of it, I could see that it would be some of the same responsibilities. But the transition, I've likened it to really needing to integrate both the right and left halves of my brain, because the way of thinking in liberal arts and the way of thinking of the faculty there was so incredibly different from the way of thinking of the science faculty with regard to analyzing data, using Excel spreadsheets to inform, decision making, the ways I would use to justify the need to make a change were very different from the ways of the faculty, yet I learned a lot, too, about having a broader appreciation for the arts and the humanities. And so for me, it was an incredibly stretching experience, and I had to learn different ways of communicating, and I also came to appreciate a broader education. So it was a wonderful year, and I decided to apply for the position and was offered the full-time position from 2006 to 2009.
And then, obviously, the next move was to the academic position.
Right. And that by that time, when the dean at that point, Alice Savage, was going to retire, I knew that I was interested. In fact, I had applied for the associate dean position that Duncan Harris wound up accepting. And so I liked the idea of not just staying with the liberal arts and not just staying with the math, science, and health careers, but working with a broader range of faculty. And so I did apply for the position, and the interview process was the most grueling one that I had to go through, because I did need to have an open forum and where people could ask any questions. But I was offered the position, and I'm delighted to be here 3 years later, still standing, sitting.
Well, I think it's very clear to anyone who works with you that you have a vision for the college. How do you develop how did you develop, and how do you continue to refine your vision for MCC?
The more and more I do, the more and more I see the need to have people, I hate to use the word committee because it's actually broader than that. It's using everybody's input to craft the best possible solution to a problem or the best possible direction. It's amazing, how often somebody will say something that will spur my thinking, or in a group situation, how the end result is very different from perhaps what I thought was the best way. And I'll use general education as an example because that's one that's touched everyone at the college. It was obvious, to Alice Savage, to Dean Savage, that our general education needed to be reformed. And so she really put in the beginning steps to that by forming a committee. But we realized right near the beginning of my role as dean that there were many steps in the process and a lot of education that we needed to have as well. So over time, we had different groups attend different conferences and have that shared experience of what they learned at the conference share it with each other. And the entire pattern of the general education reform kind of kept switching directions as we educated ourselves better, as we talked to faculty and got feedback from faculty, came back, changed some things, went out to get feedback. So where we're at now is not where I thought we'd be, and not where perhaps I would have even directed things to go, but probably a far better place for this college, than any one person could have determined. And again, with the buy-in from a variety of people, there's an understanding, a common understanding of where we should go. So I really see, I think this is probably true with anyone who assumes a leadership position, that it's really not about the position or about that person. It's the ability probably of that person to work with groups to generate the best answer to an issue. And so the fact that we have people so invested in various issues and across the campus who are willing to take on leadership roles in those, I think has helped us advance quite a bit.
If you reflect back over your period as academic dean or even division director, is there one thing or are there several things that you are most proud of having accomplished?
One common element throughout that has been work with our community, and especially a passion for me ever since I started as a faculty member has been working with the high schools. So we've continued that work. There are faculty that have been and continue to do work with high schools. Phil Jones brings in high school students. You bring in high school students. So we have faculty that have been doing that. We've intensified our work in recent years to help communicate college readiness to our sending high schools, and that work has now received funding by the state in order to deepen it and broaden it. So that work, and I see a lot of continuation in that work. I'm also, I think that the college as a whole should be proud of what's occurred with general education reform. And again, we're only at the infancy of that, but the direction it's going and the way that it will address writing across the curriculum for students and also the connections they make with the different disciplines as they're taking them. I think as a college we have improved with assessment, whether it's at the course level or at the program level, or whether it's an evaluation of how we've done something after we've completed the process. And again, and each one of these is populated by so many people. And then, of course, the NEASC self-study that we completed this year that really had over 100 people involved with teams to write the standards, and then a great steering committee that steered the process effectively. And I think the visit from the evaluation team actually turned out to be a lot of fun. We learned a lot. They seemed to enjoy their stay here and could feel the positive culture on campus. I think when I'm interviewing people for jobs, I think I always tell them that it's really a nice place to work, that there are, for some reason on this campus, there's a culture in which, and I'm generally speaking to faculty tend to want to do more than their jobs, far more, and they're very engaged in the culture of the college and across the college, and they not only do their work with excellence, but they enjoy each other, in conversations, so that it's a fun place to work. So I think being able to be involved in that kind of dynamic and helping to encourage it. One thing that excites me is that for even though it hasn't been that long that I've been in a leadership role, when I was in the science department as co-chair, I served on search committees where a number of the people that are in science were hired while I was a search committee chair. And then as liberal arts division director, we had a number of hires while I was a director there. And now as dean, I have the opportunity to interview all the finalists. It's exciting to see new faculty come in when others have retired and bring with them a whole new energy and possibilities.
Let's talk a little about leadership, because you mentioned that you went to leadership workshops
Right.
at Wellesley.
Wellesley.
How have you developed, and who has been influential to you in developing that leadership style?
Okay. I'll start off by saying Eleanor Westlow, she was my division director in math, science, and health careers. She was a wonderful model. I have said about her is that she always did things so well and so professionally, and she was a wonderful mentor, and it was she who first encouraged me to attend a leadership seminar. The HERS, it was Higher Education Resource Services at Wellesley that I went to, and it was a number of weekends out of the year that brought just women together who were at different places in their career to go through some pretty rigorous leadership training, all the way from, budgeting and hiring to what a president does. And I think for the first time, I questioned whether I would be interested in something beyond faculty at that point. And it opened up my eyes, to other possibilities. So and I guess what I want to say about Eleanor then is having a mentor who models good leadership, but also as a mentor recommends the next steps, I think was important. I have to say that President Dobby also gave me opportunities when I didn't think that it was necessarily the right fit, but he'd put me in places that allowed me to grow, and I appreciated that. The other training that I've had, and it was very helpful, was as a new chief academic officer, I went to the American Council on Education training for that spanned a year. And both with HERS and with the ACE group, there were networks established within those groups that allowed us to communicate with each other when we had any questions or problems. And in both of them, there were case studies that were involved that were extremely helpful. So, we always, in both of them, we had very honest presentations by academic leaders and presidents of their most difficult issues that they faced, their most challenging issues, how they failed at times, what helped to make them successful, what never to do, what would be okay to do. And so I think I learned from those a great deal. But I also, I love to kind of, watch people. And so watching, you can find good leadership all around you in pieces of each individual. So I see, styles in the people that I work with that I think are excellent ways of leading. Maybe they wouldn't fit my personality, but they're excellent ways of leading that are good models.
Challenges. Obviously, you have tremendous responsibilities on the campus. What are some of the most challenging things that you have to deal with?
The most challenging things are always personnel related, or very complex student issues, anything where you're dealing with people. And so and you've dealt with some complex student issues where perhaps there really isn't a clear, good answer to the situation. And I'll give an example. We had a student in a clinical program, and partway through the clinical program, the student was failing, and it became apparent that the student had an undiagnosed learning disability. So we were able to connect her up with the Office for Students with Disabilities, and she got the accommodations she needed. But that put us back to square one with the program again, and had to go through the program, becoming just accustomed to the disability and what accommodations she needed. It became extremely complex, and then finally involved a legal issue and an investigation. And what I was thankful was that the college had a process to deal with it. When we have an investigation, the investigation is carried out fairly, and there are recommendations to move forward. So I think in difficult situations, having a process is critically important to follow and to respect. With personnel issues, again, it becomes when there's not a clear best answer. And probably the most difficult personnel issues are issues where somebody's work needs to be addressed. And it's a long process of making recommendations and action plans for improvement, and seeing if there is, any attention paid to those, and providing whatever assistance the individual needs in order to improve. But at some point, a decision has to be made. I'll say the most awful point of my ever in my professional career was when we had to distribute layoff notices last summer that weren't related to performance issues. And it was heartbreaking. And unfortunately for those who received them, even though they were rescinded, there will never be the ability to erase, what that did, even for a couple weeks. So that was something that I didn't sleep for nights before, and I didn't sleep for nights after, knowing that I was going to have to give those out to some people in our area, and I couldn't prepare them for it, and they didn't deserve it.
You have a reputation of being an extremely hard worker. What motivates you to succeed?
I think it's the German work ethic. I love my work, so and if I'm, grappling with some issues, or I need time to think through something, at any time of the day, I'll think about that. So it's, I guess I just love what I do. I don't think I'm a fast worker, so if I do have to write something or think through a problem, I'll think about it overnight. It won't come right away. So.
Let's look to the future. I mean,
Okay.
Obviously, this is a very exciting time with the unification of the CSU charter of
Right.
community college system, with a lot of talk about remediation,
Mm-hmm.
with economic constraints. So what will you be doing the next 2 years? No, we know, maybe
All
next
of
year
that.
So what would you like to accomplish the next couple of years?
Okay. Well, looking ahead just to next year, we have 11 new faculty coming, and I think that the excitement that brings to the campus community and the ability for faculty to come out from under the pile of work that's been placed on them for the past few years will just add an incredible amount of positive energy to the campus. I'm so excited about the people that I've interviewed and offered positions to. It'll be wonderful. So I see the expansion of some of our programs and offerings. I see enrollment growth. The transfer and articulation policy, I think we have excellent campus representation on those programs. And I think that we're in a very good position as far as being the largest, and I might say it here, the best community college, but being the largest and having the greatest offerings maybe is the way to put that. So, and having gone through the gen ed reform process, we've had some very difficult discussions. We know what it takes and what we mean by having a general education course in the realm of human thought and behavior, for example. So I think we're poised to actually create a much better transfer process for our students, and that will be excellent. I actually think we can work with the legislation for SB 40 to help fashion a process for students that is better for them with regard to remediation. I agree with the legislators. You look at the cost to the student and the cost to the state of remediation, and it's not working. And we've tried, many different models, as has the rest of the country. And it's our best process right now is using the ALEX software and the Math Redesign Lab. We've had excellent results, and so have others across the country. But I think what we're already doing in that arena by communicating with our high schools, and over the past year, we've worked with Manchester and East Hartford High School to offer our highest level developmental course in their 12th grade classes. So the goal would be to help students be more college ready in high school, to eliminate that. But with SB 40, the P20 Council is charged with figuring out how to implement it and who is going to pay for the remediation. And I think we're in a good position to work with the P20 Council to make sure that what we can offer and what our limitations are well heard. So I think we're moving in a good direction with remediation. I think our transfer and articulation policy will help our students. I just had a meeting this morning. We've been working with the adult ed program in town to run a pilot program for students who had already completed an GED or a high school diploma but weren't college ready. And they've done an initial pilot program that has been successful. We were debriefing, looking at ways to make it more successful in the future. So I think we're working well with that. I'm excited about our educational and facilities master plan. I see that as the next big direction for the college. The next item that we would put on the bond agenda for building would be this new culinary arts and allied health sciences building. We have a lot of programs bubbling up in the allied health careers. We're offering this fall dental assistant certificate, polysomnography. We have radiology coming, med lab tech, a number of programs that, but we just don't have any space for. Same with engineering. We're bursting at the seams. We have 450 students in that program, and just a couple of rooms. So we really need to expand that area. We also, our hospitality is a showcase program, and there are jobs in that area, so I'm very excited about that. Main Street's another exciting venture, and we, even though I don't anticipate having credit classes there, I think more and more we will have a presence on Main Street with our community engagement work. And that's another area, service learning. We've become involved with the town in their fulfillment of their neighborhood and families strategic plan. And so working with Nathan Hale and working with Washington Elementary School, we've been able to work with the children and the youth in those schools to do a number of projects and to help connect them to the college. So.
We're going to wrap up in a moment.
Okay.
11 new faculty members will start here in late August. If you were having a cup of coffee with a new faculty member before his or her first week here, what advice would you provide?
Actually, I do tell them this. I try to explain to them that it's going to be busier than they could have ever imagined, and that their focus really needs to be on their teaching for that year and becoming acclimated to their department, to hold off on getting too involved with other activities. Even if they've been teaching as an adjunct 4 classes across the state, becoming part of a department is so much more time consuming. I tell them that sometimes they have to take their reports or papers or whatever they're grading and go hide out in the library. So they need to guard their time and keep balanced for that year. And by the end of the year, they'll have a much better idea on what it is, where they can plug in to the college. But just to, I don't want to say survive, but, to really be kind to themselves during that first year.
We've covered a lot of ground. Is there anything that you want to add?
I think it's very exciting. I was looking back at some old pictures from the early, it must have been 1963. I have 1968, I have a yearbook. And boy, times have changed, but in the college, I'm proud to be working here. So.
Thank you. Yeah. This is really good. Really, it was very good.